There's something about you that most people have probably misread their entire lives. Maybe they called you stubborn. Maybe they called you difficult. Maybe someone who was supposed to love you looked at you one day and said, "Why do you always have to make everything so hard?" And the worst part? For a moment, you believed them. But what if I told you that the part of you that resists being told what to do isn't a flaw in your character? What if it's actually the most honest thing about you? Most people will never understand this. They'll go through life following instructions, taking the path that was handed to them, and never once stopping to ask why. But you've always stopped. You've always asked why. And that quiet, burning resistance inside you, the one that tightens in your chest the moment someone tries to control you, that's not a problem to fix. That's something rare. If you've ever quietly wondered why you feel this way, why other people seem fine just going along with things, while you feel something close to physical discomfort when you're told what to do, stay with me. Because by the end of this video, you're going to see yourself completely differently. Let's start at the beginning. The first thing you need to understand is that your resistance isn't about authority. It's about authenticity. There's a concept in psychology called self-determination theory, developed by researchers Edward Deci and Richard Ryan. At its core, this theory says that every human being has three fundamental psychological needs: the need to feel competent, the need to feel connected, and the need to feel autonomous. That last one, autonomy, means the deep human need to feel like your actions come from you, like your life is actually yours. Now here's what's important. For most people, these three needs are roughly balanced. But for some people, and I'm willing to bet you're one of them, the need for autonomy runs deeper than average. It's not just a preference. It feels essential, like air. Think about a time someone gave you an instruction, maybe at work, maybe at home, and even though the instruction made logical sense, something in you pushed back. Not because you didn't understand it, but because being told to do it made you want to do it less. That's not childishness. That's a nervous system that has been wired, often through experience, to treat external control as a threat to your very sense of self. You weren't being difficult, you were protecting something precious. The second insight goes even deeper, and this one might surprise you. People who hate being told what to do are often the most internally driven people in any room. There's a term psychologists use called introjected motivation. It's when you do something not because you genuinely want to, but because you feel you should. Because of guilt, because of fear, because of what someone will think of you. Most people operate from this place more often than they realize. They follow the rules because they're afraid not to. They comply because disapproval feels dangerous. But you? You can feel the difference between doing something because it truly aligns with you and doing something because someone else decided you should. You feel that distinction in your bones. And that sensitivity, that ability to detect when your actions aren't coming from a genuine place, that's not stubbornness. That's a sophisticated inner compass that most people spend their entire lives trying to develop. The challenge, of course, is that this gift doesn't always look like a gift from the outside. When you push back in a meeting, people see defiance. When you take longer to follow someone's advice, people see pride. But what's actually happening inside you is a constant process of checking, does this feel true to me? Or am I just performing compliance because it's expected? That question is the question of a deeply conscious person. Now, the third insight is one that gets almost no attention, and I think it explains so much of your life. A lot of people who resist being controlled didn't start out this way. For many, this trait was shaped by an environment where their boundaries weren't respected, where their no wasn't honored, where adults in their life, with the best or sometimes not so best intentions, made decisions for them, over and over, without ever asking what they thought or how they felt. And over time, something inside them decided, quietly but firmly, never again. Never again will I let someone else take the wheel of my life without my permission. Psychologists call this psychological reactance. It's a real, documented response. When people feel their freedom being threatened, something in them naturally pushes back to restore that sense of control. And while everyone experiences this to some degree, for people who grew up in environments where their autonomy was regularly dismissed, this response gets amplified. It becomes a default. Here's the reframe, though, and I want you to really hear this. That amplified response? It kept you intact. When the world around you was telling you who to be, what to want, how to act, how to feel, that resistance was the part of you that said, "That's not me. I know who I am." It protected your identity when the world was trying to shape it into something more convenient for everyone else. Your resistance wasn't rebellion, it was self-preservation. The fourth insight is about something you've probably noticed in yourself without ever having words for it. People who hate being told what to do often have an extraordinary relationship with intrinsic motivation. When something is your idea, you go all in. When a project belongs to you, you bring a level of energy and creativity that genuinely surprises people. But the moment someone stands over you and starts directing, something drains out of you almost instantly. The passion fades, the ideas dry up, and you're left just going through the motions. This is not laziness. This is actually what research consistently shows about human performance. Studies on intrinsic versus extrinsic motivation show that external rewards and controls can actively undermine performance in creative and complex tasks. The psychological term is the over-justification effect. When external pressure replaces internal drive, the quality of work and the joy in doing it tends to collapse. You are someone who does their best work from the inside out, not from the outside in. And in a world that's built on top-down structures, on management and oversight and instruction, this can make you feel broken, like there's something wrong with your work ethic. But there isn't. You just need ownership. You need meaning. You need to feel like what you're doing has your fingerprints on it. Give you that, and you're unstoppable. Take it away, and you're just a person counting down the hours. The fifth insight might be the most important one, and it's also the one most people get completely wrong about you. Your resistance to being controlled is actually a sign of high-level thinking. There's research in developmental psychology suggesting that the ability to question authority, to think critically about the rules you're given rather than just accepting them, is associated with more advanced moral reasoning. Psychologist Lawrence Kohlberg described several stages of moral development, and the lower stages are all about following rules to avoid punishment or gain reward. But the higher stages, the ones fewer people reach, are about reasoning from personal principles, from a genuine internal sense of what's right. When you push back on an instruction, when you ask why before you comply, when you refuse to do something simply because someone in a position of power told you to, you are demonstrating the kind of moral independence that, historically, has been responsible for almost every important act of human courage you can name. Think about that for a moment. The same quality that made you seem difficult in a classroom or a workplace is the quality that makes people stand up when everyone else sits down. It's the quality that makes people say, "This doesn't feel right. I won't do it," even when the cost is high. You were never the problem. You were just in the wrong rooms. And now I want to bring all of this together because I think there's a reframe available to you right now that can genuinely change how you move through the world. Here it is. You were never someone who couldn't follow rules. You were someone who could feel the difference between rules that honored your humanity and rules that ignored it, between guidance that came from care and control that came from fear, between people who wanted to help you grow and people who just wanted you smaller and easier to manage. That sensitivity isn't a disorder, it isn't immaturity, it isn't something you need to fix or medicate or apologize for in therapy. It is one of the clearest signals of a person who is deeply, quietly, persistently committed to living a life that is genuinely theirs. And yes, it's harder. It is genuinely harder to move through a world that runs on compliance when your whole nervous system is oriented toward authenticity. There are costs. There have been relationships where this part of you wasn't welcomed, jobs where it made you invisible or made you a target, Moments where you would have given anything to just be someone who could go along with things without it feeling like a small death inside. I know. But here's what I also know. The people who change things, who create things, who build lives that actually look and feel like them, they are almost always people who couldn't be fully controlled, who held something back even when everything around them said, give it up, who carried their own sense of direction even when someone else was holding the map. That is you. And if no one has ever said this to you clearly, let me say it now. The way you are wired is not a mistake. The resistance in you is not something that happened to your personality, it is your personality. And it points toward something, toward a life that you actually chose, toward work that actually means something to you, toward relationships where you are seen and not managed, toward a version of yourself that doesn't have to shrink to make other people comfortable. You don't need to be easier, you need to be in the right places, with the right people, doing the right work. And maybe this video was one small step in that direction, a moment where something inside you went quiet and thought, yes, finally, someone gets it. If it did, if any part of this felt like it was speaking directly to something you've carried for a long time, I'd love for you to subscribe. Because this channel exists exactly for people like you. People who think deeply, feel everything, and are done pretending to be less than they are. New videos every week, and I'll see you in the next one.